All right, folks, welcome to Town Hall. I'd like our deputy clerk to take attendance, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will do our workshop agenda. We have a couple of presentations. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the town of Orangetown. This is a workshop meeting of Tuesday, May 9th, 2017. And on a roll call, Councilman Troy.
Dennis?
Councilman Troy?
Yes.
Councilman Divany?
I'm here, but no left.
Councilman Valentine?
Here.
Councilman Vittori?
Here.
And Supervisor Stewart?
Here.
Yes, if you want to please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, and welcome back to Councilman Troy from your brief interlude with surgery and whatnot. It's great to see you on your feet. We have just one or two announcements. The annual Highway Awards presentations will take place on Tuesday next week. Jim Dean will be coordinating that, recognition of the Highway Department, and also the Highway Department Open House is coming up in a couple of weeks. What's the date on that? Saturday, May 20th at 10 o'clock. So just pass the word, and for folks who might be watching on TV tonight, Highway Department Open House is a lot of fun. Bring your kids, have popcorn, and climb on heavy equipment. We're also going to have a presentation on a petition for a zone change next week. This relates to the FB Orangeburg, the Stop and Shop area, and they have a request for a small change in zoning related to their development there. So those are scheduled for next week. We may have other presentations, but those are just heads up. Tonight, we have a workshop agenda. We have one item that we're going to take a vote on, I think. Two, maybe we may have two. Sometimes during a workshop, we'll actually vote on something. Most of the time, these are items just for discussion and for a vote next week. And we're going to start off with a couple of presentations. I'm going to start off with the New York Power Authority. New York Power Authority is the town's partner in converting over 2,000 streetlights to LEDs. And for anybody who attends meetings regularly, you'll know that we've already committed to Orange and Rockland to buy back the streetlights that the town has, so that we'll own them, taking advantage of much lower rates for municipally owned streetlights, and then convert them to LEDs, which of course saves money on electricity in addition to that. The conversion process is somewhat complex. We have an agreement with the New York Power Authority to coordinate that, to engineer it, and to work with the town to get it done and to put out the bids for the actual work by electricians to buy the fixtures and to install them. So I want to invite the New York Power Authority to address the board briefly, just to update us on the process. They have a handout, and it's the same thing that's up on the wall over there. Jesse.
Thank you, Andy. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Scott. I am here representing the New York Power Authority. The Power Authority is traditionally known for generating power, low-cost hydropower mostly, and transmitting power. The group I work in actually implements projects, energy efficiency projects, for public entities all across the state, projects just like this. So every year my group implements between $200 and $300 million in projects that help communities, local school districts, SUNYs, other state entities and local governments save money on their power bill and their gas bill. The project we're going to talk about tonight, I'm going to just briefly touch on this, and I'll leave my contact info up, and I'd be happy to share my contact info with anybody who has any questions past this. But the project we're here to discuss tonight is LED street lighting. It's a very popular technology that a lot of people have heard about. It's been in the news a lot lately, and a lot of surrounding communities in the area are already well on their way to installing LED lights. So with that being said, the services that the Power Authority would be in charge of for this project are first going out at night and doing an audit of the existing lights, taking light level meter readings, and making sure that we're being sensitive to historic districts, residential neighborhoods, and that we're not causing light pollution, and that we're giving not too much light, and we're creating the basis of our design so that we're not overlighting or creating light pollution. So we will be the engineer of record on this project, and this will be rubber stamped and engineered by us. Our headquarters is right over in White Plains, and you'll have a construction manager, an engineer on site during the whole installation. So if you have any questions throughout the whole process, you can contact the town, and the town will contact us, and you'll have a response within 24 hours typically for any questions or concerns. So as the construction's going on, we'll be out there on site, making sure the installation is taking place efficiently, effectively, and in a timely fashion. Once the installation is done, we'll commission the fixtures to make sure that the light angle and the light beam is directionally appropriate, that the lights are installed appropriately, and ongoing maintenance to make sure the sensors are functioning correctly, and the system's working the way it was designed to work. We will also be financing the project. So once you move forward with acquiring the system from Orange and Rockland, and doing the labor and the material and the design for the project, NYPA will be financing this project from beginning to end without the town having to go out to do bonding for that. So that's one of the services that we offer. Incentive acquisition. There are incentives available out there for Orange and Rockland, and NYPA will be working as your trusted energy advisor on your behalf to make sure we capture all of those incentives out there available to you. And then we will also offer a warranty labor, and the manufacturer offers a material labor, and I'll show you what the fixture might look like in a minute. This is just a quick slide on our tax-exempt municipal lease. This is a very popular financing model. White Plains is using this model right now. We're about 2/3 of the way done with installation in the city of White Plains. So this is a way for you to borrow money without having it to go against your bond cap. And if anybody has any detailed questions on this, I'd be happy to discuss this further with you. And this is also the model that Clarkstown is using, by the way. Clarkstown installation has started recently using NYPA about 2 months ago, and that project is well on its way as well. So this is the timeline for the project. This is proposed, so these are moving targets, but this is ideal situation. With us trying to complete this project by the end of the year. Later next month, we would have a project kickoff with all stakeholders. During that time, we would be interviewing DPW staff. We would have open comments from residents and anybody who had any input on areas of the town that were either overlit or underlit, and we'd start creating our design at that point in late June. July 1st, you would take ownership of the system. At that point in time, you're already saving money because you're not paying that maintenance charge every month to Orange and Rockland. So your savings, although the energy savings wouldn't be fully realized until the end of the year, you would start saving money already as a town July 1st once you take ownership of that system. We would order materials at the beginning of August. Between the project kickoff and the materials being ordered, we would do the procurement, meaning the labor bids and the material bids. We would do all that procurement on the behalf of the town. We would do the field audit and the design. We would order materials probably about 50% design so we could get started, so we wouldn't have to wait for the design to be complete, because when you're talking about over 2,000 lights, there's a little bit of lead time to receive the materials because it's a pretty substantial material order. But we're thinking we can get the materials delivered mid-September, and we're looking at a 3-month, and that's a conservative estimate, implementation period for the installation. Now, we can tighten that up a little bit, but to give ourselves some breathing room, we're looking at mid-December. Once you get into January and February, the installation is a little bit more difficult to do. You're facing weather conditions that are a little extreme. So we would try to complete the installation before the end of the year to avoid storms and snow season and things like that. So this is an overview of the way we've structured the project. The payment terms are flexible. These are estimates. The project cost is an estimate, a very conservative estimate. We'll know final prices when we get the bids back, and so these are all estimates. But we have very, very accurate assumptions based on bids we've received back from Clarkstown and White Plains and other surrounding communities where we've done this type of project before. Bottom line is, the way the loan is structured now, the town would be saving over $100,000 a year right away, and then long term, looking over 350, maybe $400,000 a year, moving forward long term. These fixtures are rated to last 20 years. There should be very little maintenance on these fixtures. So that's a summary of the project itself. Here's my contact information. I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to really quick show you what the light might look like. This is the light that we're installing in the city of White Plains right now. Now, if everybody remembers those old 100-watt lights that you've had in your kitchens and bedrooms in your house, historically, this light is a 35-watt LED, and this is about 75% of the lights that we'd be installing look like this. So you're going from 150 watts currently to 250 watts down to 35 watts. And this is a Philips fixture, runs between $170 and $190 depending on the bid. But this is the fixture that we're using currently in the city of White Plains, so we're thinking it might look something like this.
Can we just see the bulb part? Obviously, without shining it straight in your eyes, but no, this direction. Okay, so it has like, what, 10 bulbs in it or
There's
something?
multiple diodes. I think it's about 18 diodes on this
Yeah.
fixture. So the larger the wattage of the existing fixture, the more diodes there would be. We would use one manufacturer, just different wattages for the different fixtures you have around town. But this is a Philips fixture that was the lowest bid in White Plains, and it's a very popular and durable fixture. On the back of this is a cover for birds and for rodents and things that try to get into these fixtures, because they do get a little warm, so you tend to get some birds to try to get in there, but there's lenses and protective covers for that. In residential neighborhoods, you can shield this. So if you put a light up in your house and there might be some light coming out of the side, you have the ability to shield the light to prevent that light pollution going into somebody's house. Now these are replacing the Cobra headlights. In a historic district with poles that are more historic looking, we'd use a completely different looking fixture than that.
Just to wrap up, we did do a tour. Jerry and Paul were able to go with myself, and we looked at some of the LED fixtures in Clarkstown, but you wanted us to go to see the ones in White Plains as well,
Right.
which are more suitable in some ways to Orangetown. So for Dennis and the rest of us, I'd like to schedule a ride in your very nice van over to White Plains. It was really very useful information to have and to get a kind of a first-hand look at night at the different kinds of lights at the different kinds of intersections. Obviously, brighter for the main thoroughfares and smaller for the side roads. And so we're going to have to try to schedule that. All right.
You were saying these things last 20 years?
They're rated for 20 years, correct?
They die at 5 years, or 7 years.
Yeah. So
Do we get a break on that?
they're warranted for 10.
Okay.
So they're warranted for 10. You'll have extras. We will warranty the labor for 1 year. With LED technology, if they fail, they typically fail in the first week. So we'll know right away. After that, you're talking about parts of a percentage of a number of the total system failing every year, but they are warranted for 10. We would warranty the labor for the first year.
Thank you.
Yep. And I welcome anybody to tour White Plains at night. We're about 2/3 of the way done. We've done commercial areas, we've done mixed-use areas, we've done residential areas. So it's a good, you can see a nice mix of the different lights. The supervisor is right though. In main roads that are maybe 4-lane roads or much wider, we would use a much higher wattage than this, probably something more like 120 watts as opposed to this 35-watt light. And those would be installed on much longer arms at a higher height, more like 35, 40 feet, as opposed to maybe a 20, 25-foot pole or arm on a pole in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, I have a question about you have a scale in terms of warm and cool scale?
It's
What's the existing, these seem to be a colder light than what's existing?
So that's a great question. So the lights that exist now, you have mercury vapor and metal halide, right? So the mercury vapor, those more yellow, orange-looking lights, they're warmer, right? So these lights are a clearer, crisper light. Historically, LED streetlights have always been given a kind of a blue appearance. And the reason that manufacturers use that is because the bluer lights had a higher efficiency, so you could get a lower wattage out of that light. They've such changed so that now you're using warmer color temperatures. And we encountered this in Harrison and in White Plains, where we will only use warm color temperature lights in the residential neighborhoods.
Okay.
And we will use the more like middle of the ground 4,000 Kelvin color temperature fixtures in the commercial areas, because commercial areas tend to like more light, to attract businesses for safety reasons and things like that. So we will use warm color temperature lights, and we do this through testing, just the experience that we've gotten over the last 3 years with installing these types of lights. So we've just completed Harrison, and we have several other installations in municipalities around the state, and it's just it's not worth it to install for a little bit of energy savings or dollar savings. If people are not comfortable with the light,
Right.
it's not beneficial to anybody. So we're going to make sure to be very sensitive to that, and we're aware of the studies that have been out there about sleeping patterns with cool temperature LEDs, and so that's why we're very, very sensitive. And if need be, we can also adjust the output of the light, so these lights can be modulated down if need be, or also, as I mentioned before, we can use shielding to control the direction of the light as well.
We actually have to move on. The cool thing about working with the New York Power Authority is they're actually going to be available to answer community questions. But right now we're in a workshop mode. We're just trying to advance this project. It's going to save the town a lot of money, but we need to keep going. So if you're all set,
Yep.
we're going to schedule a tour of White Plains. I'll be in contact with you about that.
Great.
Carol or anybody else, if you'd like to come along, please say the word,
Yep.
and we'll go together and get snacks and make a mess out of his van. It'll be fun.
Thank you so much.
So we have two other just briefings. One, Carol Baxter, as you know, the town board fully supports demanding that the DOT do more to promote safety on Route 9W through Palisades. And we thank you for your leadership and coming to the Traffic Advisory Board, getting their evaluation and support. We're not going to do the slideshow. And we have, for anybody who wants to take the time, in our agenda tonight, a detailed resolution, describing the things that the DOT is being requested to review. And if you could just sort of give us the bullet points on that and answer any town board questions from our perspective, that would be great.
Okay. I want to thank the board Carol Baxter from Palisades, and I represent over 200 people who are very active and interested in this issue about traffic safeties on Route 9W. Thank you for listening to me again. I've been here off and on since 2008. Some of you have come. Dennis Troy and Andy Stewart has come and sat on the corner with us while the car's whizzing by, and thank you for this opportunity to try one more time to have the state come down. Since the last time they were here, which was 2011, I did have a PowerPoint, but we're not doing the PowerPoint, so I have this little packet here if you need to look at any pictures. Things have changed since the last time that the DOT did come down in 2011. We have a new bustling Route 9W market, which has a lot of cars and encourages cyclists and pedestrians, and we also have a new housing development of 16 houses on Kopek Lane. So with all that, we have increased cyclist, motorist, and truck traffic, not to mention the increased traffic from people coming from points north, south, and west to use the Palisades Parkway. One statistic that we have, we did get the police reports from January 2016 till February 2017. There were 23 accident reports in the Palisades corridor. And of those 23, 7 of those occurred this past January and February. So there are accidents that are happening there, and they're documented, and it does not reflect the near misses that happen every single day. Within the last 2 months, we have been busy. We've met with the Traffic Advisory Board twice. We met with the Highway Department. We met with the regional DOT on the site of the intersection. We've held 2 community meetings to a full house, And we have a scheduled meeting with the Orangetown Police Department on Monday to find other ways that they can deal with the traffic issues that are not actual functional physical issues. As it says in the resolution, there are 5 issues that we are really requesting for the state to come down. One is to move the pedestrian push-button poles from the north side of the street to the south side of the street. There's no sidewalks on the north side of the street, so we want them to come onto the south side. Move the no turn on red sign, which is on a pole that can't be seen, and we would like to have it moved right onto the traffic light itself. They did move it last week, but people still are ignoring it. And they don't see it or they don't ignore it or whatever. On the southwest corner, there's an extremely wide shoulder, and it presents a lot of problems for people that are in the bus lanes. So what we have asked to either do curbing or what the regional DOT has suggested, which we'll be happy with, is to do painting and then cross-hatching. And at the meeting that we had the other night from the community, we also would hope that they could maybe put some kind of texturized surface there. So it makes it really a deterrent from people to go in there because they go right into the bus lane. It's actually not a bus lane, it's not a lane, it's a shoulder. Delayed green for the southbound traffic, and a left turn green area for the northbound traffic. The idea is just to get the people that are coming from New Jersey, which there are lots of them. There's always more coming in that direction. Let them come through the intersection first, and the people coming from the Nyack area, hold them back and let everybody come through, and it will solve a lot of problems of people turning illegally into the bus lane. Sometimes they turn into the left lane, into the oncoming traffic to turn left. It's crazy. It's really crazy there. And I do have pictures, but we won't do that. And it was the suggestion of the regional DOT to actually put the left turn arrow there. He said it would be add confidence to people who are going to turn left to know that they're not going to get hit, which I thought was an excellent idea. The big item, though, is the reduction of the speed limit from 45 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour in the Palisades corridor, which we call from the New York State border, which is at Lamont, down to the Spark Hill Viaduct. It's a mile and a half. I'm not going to go into the whole details, but basically, for 7 miles in New Jersey on Route 9W, which is a very wide, big-shouldered road, straight, flat, very few curves, excellent visibility, low volume of traffic, virtually no driveways or offshooting streets, with one business, which is the restaurant Kiku. Their speed limit is 40 miles an hour. Just before you get to the that exit 4 on the Palisades Parkway, that kind of dip down with a traffic light, New Jersey lowers their speed limit to 35 miles an hour to slow you into this area around the curve. You go up the hill to New York State, it's 35 miles an hour. As soon as you hit New York State, it's 45 miles an hour, and it's down that incredibly steep hill, curvy hill, 45 miles an hour, and we all know people are going faster than 45 miles an hour. They go down the hill, they're passing the swim club with carloads of kids in the summer, the preschool, which is across the street. They see the yellow light, they floor it through the yellow light, and they continue 45, 50 miles an hour past the New Market. There's a lot of parking, pedestrians, cyclists. It's much too fast. So we're hoping that you are in support of that.
Of course we are.
Yay. Yay.
No, you know, I just want
And
to.
I think that's really it. Go ahead.
I would, you know, it's important for people to understand that the conversation we're having right now is really just sort of a reminder. This is a proposal which has gone through our highway department, our traffic advisory board. The town board is well aware of it. Your work on behalf of the community is wonderful. And what the matter that we're going to vote on next week has to do with conveying these recommendations and demanding a response from the DOT. And that's, you know, so we're not engaged in a process of persuasion right now.
Exactly.
It's just, it's nice to hear, and for folks who might be watching on TV, to understand that there's a lot more detail they can get if they want to look through this resolution or talk to you.
Right.
the traffic advisory board.
I have to say the highway department's been very supportive. The traffic advisory board is very supportive.
Of course.
The police chief Nolte is supportive, so it's really wonderful to hear of everyone's support.
Absolutely.
And also at the last meeting that we had, there's also issues, if we could tag on to Route 340, as long as the state's coming down, you're inviting them to come down, there's a lot of issues there at 340 as well that would like to be looked at. And I think that's probably it.
Just as a wrap-up on this, is in a general conversation about traffic calming, and an invitation to folks in your neighborhood, Carol, is we are kind of beginning to take baby steps towards hiring a consultant to look at bicycle traffic, which is very dense in that area as well. And I imagine a lot of the folks in that neighborhood are very keenly sort of aware of the interplay of cars and bikes and what can be done perhaps. So just as an invitation, and just keep your eye on the agendas, we're going to be inviting people to come forward and volunteer as a part of that process.
That's great.
To help with that study.
These issues seem like they're Palisades issues, but they're really not. You know, we run the farmers market in Palisades on Saturdays, and as soon as people heard that we were opening this up again, people from all over the place that come to the farmers market, Westchester, Montvale, Fort Lee, they all complain about the intersection and the cyclists in the summer. So it's really not, it's not just a Palisades issue, it's really anybody who travels on that corridor of Route 9W. It's for their own safety. And I know you're moving along, but I do have a great little video, a 2-minute video of cyclists coming down the hill, but we'll save that for another time.
Well, when we get into the cyclists,
Yes.
let's really
Oh,
bring that
right.
information
Perfect.
forward.
Don't forget to remind me. I'll bring
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It'll be nice. You won't have to hear from me anymore if this all goes away. And really, thank you for your support. We really, really appreciate it.
All right.
Yep.
Well done. So, our next item, just for another update, is from Carol Laval, is here from the Historical Society. I just passed out a handout, which is Carol's handout, plus a summary by myself at the top. This group has done great work with Hay Board members, Historical Society, residents from the historic areas, has engaged the board in, I think, 2 presentations related to its proposals to improve town code on 3 topics, really. One had to do with scale of houses. That piece has been pulled out. And the other 2 having to do with neon signs and related, and also with the process for public notification on demolitions. I know the town board is interested in sort of seeing this proposal formalized in some sense for a public hearing. If you could just report to us briefly what your thoughts are right now. I mean, obviously you want to see a version of this subject to public hearing, which is how we change town codes. Could you speak to the matter or fill them in on anything in particular?
Well, is there anything else that
Yeah, maybe I just
that I
said
need
the
to
whole
say?
thing.
You might have said it all.
Sorry. But you're invited to say anything you want, essentially, to town board at this time.
Well, we appreciate your listening to us for several presentations and your careful consideration and questions that have helped us to look more carefully at what our proposals were. And so we'd like to move forward with this if you're in agreement, and appreciate all your help and advice in the process. 11 meetings worth of.
Thank you for your work on this, and I know John G., I asked him to review it, and the stuff related to signs and demolition.
Right.
So I'll be waiting to have any further comments he might have, and I will propose that we schedule a public hearing on these amendments. I just want to make sure we have the sort of the package put together for to make sure we don't schedule a hearing and then we have to delay it because we don't have the papers drawn up correctly for the notifications and so on. But I would like to see the modified and proposals go forward for consideration for because I think it will really help to the sign stuff, particularly the neon signs, the temporary signs, the lettering and windows in the historic areas, and also providing for a little bit more on public notification in the cases of the demolition of old and historic homes.
Yes.
And we've seen some
Yes. Those would be
cases of kind of surprise demolitions that where items might have been able to have been salvaged or something like that. So.
Yeah, yes, these are mainly tweakings in a way, not major revisions of the law as it stands. It's refinements. We hope.
Do you have any questions for Carol right now? No?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I know, we had a good discussion last time you were in, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
and Alice for your work on this, and the others in the group as well.
Yeah, thank-
Susan.
Okay, thank you.
So, if we get back to our, oh, I had one handout I just wanted to give the town board. It's really just kind of an update. This is the capital projects grant opportunities. Let me just do a verbal on this. You know, there are two important deadlines coming up in mid-June and mid-July. Mid-June for environmental facilities funded sewer, basically where we go to get affordable financing for sewer projects, and mid-July for the CFA, which is the state's kind of one-stop shopping for grants related to infrastructure. And we've had a couple of meetings between department heads, particularly highway, sewer, and parks, and our grant writer Sylvia Welch, our government relations expert Alex Becky, and trying to narrow down to some applications that would be the highest priority for the town. And I'm going to hand out, just as an internal memo, the list that we've gotten to so far. There's enough sort of gaps in the information that that I want you to review it and have a sense of what the priorities are, and then.
That's the email you sent out?
Yeah, I sent it to you via email. Not to go into detail right now, but there's a couple of really important sewer projects and highway projects and some opportunities in the area of, for example, the commuter lot over on Route 340, which is, I think, a very fundable project, being as the engineering is complete and the property is within the town's control. So I think that we have some promising grants to write, and I'd like you to look at that list, and for them individually, I'm going to come back and give more detail about the cost of producing the grant, the deadline, and the expected town contribution if we get the funding. But it's going to move pretty quickly over the next few weeks, and that's just an update on that.
You gave us a copy here too, or just on
I think I emailed it to you, and hold on, I actually made some extras to hand out. Let's see if I can find them. Here we go. Let's see. Just didn't get collated. You know, since I'm looking at this, I'll just briefly. There's, I think, 10 listed here. In sewer, in DEMI, there's upgrades, DEC mandated upgrades to the treatment of the effluent, the removal of chlorine and the removal of nitrogen that are coming our way as mandates that we're going to need to invest in. So we want to look at the availability of financing for that through the state. Oftentimes, you can get a loan where 25% of the loan is a grant. There's sewer relining and replacement, which is an ongoing project for the town, as always. There's the proposal, which I think is quite creative, of decommissioning pump stations and replacing them with gravity sewer, obviously with savings as far as maintenance of pump stations. That's over in Pearl River. There's the telemetry upgrades for control and communication between the pump stations, which we've talked about before. On the highway side, there's the commuter lot by the Legion baseball field. There's priority sidewalk construction on Oak Tree Road between Route 303 and the rail trail. There's the rail trail modification to reduce flooding. That's down off of Oak Tree Road where the water backs up from the parkway, and it covers the rail trail and it covers Oak Tree Road. It goes down into south of Oak Tree Road. And we have engineering to show that if we change the level of the rail trail, the waters will recede more quickly. We've applied for grants on a couple of these before, and we'd like to come back. That's especially true for number 9, which is the salt wash for the highway department. This enables us to capture salty water from washing highway trucks and reuse it as brine and keep it out of the drainage system, which is a plus on the water pollution side as well. So those are the main items. Some watershed feasibility work. There's one in here which is number 11, which is a grant that would be written not by Sylvia Welch, but by the watershed group, and it would be written on behalf of the town. So the setup is slightly different on that. That wouldn't cost the town any for the application submission, but the money would come to the town for a particular watershed study. So those are the big items there. I'll just finish up by mentioning the Hunt Road project, which is an effort to move and rebuild our highway and parks maintenance facilities off of the parcel on Hunt Road that's right next to the data centers, make that property available for data center development, and use the money to build better facilities for parks and highway. And so those are projects which are kind of rose to the top of our list as town staff. I would like the town board members to give it another look and remind us if there's anything missing or something that's particularly pressing. And we'll move forward with that guidance. Back to the agenda. Item number 1 is a personnel item. It's essentially a kind of a housekeeping matter. It is time sensitive, so recommendation from personnel as we actually vote tonight. This is the appointment of Stephanie Tisello, who currently works in the finance department, going from a kind of a probationary type appointment to permanent appointment, no change in salary, and we thank her. She's a wonderful employee. I'll make a motion for this. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll
From Troy?
second that. She's a terrific employee in the finance department. Town's lucky to have her.
Well said. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that takes care of that.
Going to vote on another one, number 2.
Number 2 is setting a public hearing.
That's not it.
No, that's, you just
No,
said
John
number
ha-
2,
John
but that's
has
not
it.
it.
It's going to be 1B.
Okay, so we have another resolution which is not on here, which is new business. And this relates to the town's effort to move our Homes for Heroes partnership forward. Of course, on the town side, it's a green infrastructure and drainage project, but it coincides with the development of the veterans' housing, and that requires a sort of suitable modification on the zoning. So, John, I'm going to have to turn this over to you because although we've discussed this various times, I don't have a piece of paper in front of me.
Okay, so we've discussed this various times, and in order to move it forward, quickly, I have a resolution which takes care of the preliminary steps and sets a public hearing for a zoning text amendment that would add veteran housing to an existing conditional use category in the R15 zone, which covers the property where the Homes for Heroes is. As you know, the Homes for Heroes project is partially developed. It was developed without a requirement of any type of zoning text amendment because it was federally owned. And in contemplation of a conveyance to the Homes for Heroes, this text amendment will provide the necessary zoning authorization. So the amendment would be as follows. Resolved that the town board hereby sets May 23 at 8:05 p.m. for a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 43 of the Town Code and the use and bulk regulations applicable to the R15 zoning district, adding veteran housing under Column 4, Subdivision 2 as a conditional use. And be it further resolved that in connection therewith, the town board declares its intent to be lead agency for environmental review, directs the circulation thereof to all interested involved agencies, and further directs circulation to the Rockland County Planning Department for review pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 239, and to the Town Planning Board pursuant to Section 10 of the Town Code.
You got that?
Not all of it.
All
Yeah,
right.
you do.
You'll get a copy of it. Thank you, Val. We have a motion from Troy, second from Batari. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So we set a public hearing, and we will shortly have the printed copy of that for notification purposes. And again, it's a continuation of our work on that property in Tapan, which is really coming along wonderfully. In fact, just this morning, we had a little conference. It was attended by Joe Moran, John G. was there, and others related to watershed and stormwater management. and it took place over at the Rock and Country Club, and folks wanted to see some diagrams of the constructed wetlands planned for the backyard of the Homes for Heroes project, and I think that getting almost $1 million from the state and the work of our highway department and engineering department was really well recognized at the event this morning. People were pretty impressed with that project, so it's nice to see it moving forward. And I should recognize John Murphy. Thank you for your leadership on this and in partnership with the town, John. And we'll do everything we can to move it along. I met with the High Tor Animal Shelter folks a couple days ago and queried them as to the status of their proposed move. And it seems somewhat up in the air. And we're on that. They obviously always need help as a nonprofit raising money. And so there'll be more information about that shortly. But there will be an event in Orangetown supporting the animal shelter in June. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned. Other items on the agenda for tonight are workshop items, just for review by the town board. The number 2, 3, 4, 5 are all related to a public hearing, lead agency, and adoption of a change in our local law that essentially kind of matches it up with the uniform building safety and fire code that the state has. So it's kind of on a public safety housekeeping side of things. Number 6 is 6 and 7 is the entity disclosure law, which relates to requiring limited liability corporations to identify with greater detail their principals, their owners, their members when they're involved in property in Orangetown. And that's been discussed before, and this is setting a public hearing. So, any discussion of that one? I know we've gone over this before, so.
It's a needed law.
It's a needed law, and it's I think pretty well worked out there. Number 8 is the authorization. This is a special event related items. This is for the Greek Festival, June 1 through 4, Highway and Police Department assistance. Number 9 is for the Bluegrass Festival on June 11th, the assistance from Highway and Police Departments. Number 10 is for the Gran Fondo Bike Race on May 21st. We're already starting to see some banners up about that out on I think I saw them on Route 9W, Palisades actually. Number 11 is assistance for the Memorial Day event on May 28th over at the, so this is on the Walkway of Heroes in Tapan, which is a really important event, and we'll be promoting that as heavily as possible, try to get people to come out for it. And then on the tail end of that event, working with Keep Rockin' Beautiful, we're going to have a little historic tour. So folks who never had a chance to walk around that park and actually have the artifacts identified and described to them, and then go down and go to the Camp Shanks Museum, which the veterans will have open that day, and then take a hop up on Clausland Mountain and see the tunnels from the old rifle range. It's all on for right after the Memorial Day ceremony. So try to spread the word about that. Number 12 is the appointment of an account clerk typist in the Highway Department. Any discussion needed on that? It's pretty straightforward. Number 13 is Bruce Peters from our engineering going to a Stormwater Managers Association conference. Bruce, of course, had a big role in the design of our constructed wetlands project down at Homes for Heroes. Number 14 is the agreement with D&B Engineers to provide temporary chief operator services. This is adding an extra week or so onto that agreement just to take us through. We are, Donna and Personnel and Joe Moran, Sewer Commissioner, interviewed and recommended a person to be hired to be chief operator who looks like a really, really great addition And I think we actually have the resolution number 15, which we'll workshop tonight for vote next week. And his resume, this is Michael Weber for Chief Operator. His resume is available to the town board, and it describes his qualifications and what the job would be and what the salary would be. It's not easy to find licensed sewer treatment plant operators, especially ones with a grade 4 or 4A license, which Mr. Weber has. So congratulations to Joe to tracking down somebody to replace Ken Skabinski. Number 16 is the item related to what Carol Baxter was talking about, the safety improvements on Route 9W that are really the purview of the state DOT, the traffic calming and pedestrian crossing signals and things like that. Number 17 is an agreement which we do every year through the stormwater education program run by Cornell Cooperative Extension. And what this does is it essentially outsources a couple of key tasks related to the town's compliance with our MS4 permit. And this is the public education and outreach and training. I forget if there's one other item in there, but these are the tasks that all of the towns get together and fund somebody from Cornell Cooperative Extension to hold the trainings and do the community outreach materials. So this is $6,800 for that purpose. Does anybody have any questions about that one? The stormwater stuff? Okay. All right. So that is our printed agenda for tonight. Let me just double sure that we didn't leave anything out. I wanted to make an announcement. As folks are probably aware, the governor has mandated that the county executive convene supervisors and mayors to sit as a panel exploring shared services opportunities, and there's lots of information about that available on the Department of State's website. There are 3 public hearings coming up in May and June when the panel will meet and hear from the public on anything the public has to say on the topic. And I have a handout here with the dates of those meetings. I'm required to be there. I encourage anybody else who's interested to come. And it's going to be an interesting conversation. We did have our first meeting. Ed Day convened us, and there was sort of a discussion of the process related to how the panel functions. It should be understood that while there are some benefits that are possible through shared services, there are also, each idea needs to be evaluated on its merits, and the participation of myself on behalf of the town board is mandatory in these panel meetings, but the participation of the town in any particular shared service agreement that the county executive might recommend when he puts together his recommendations based on these panel discussions, the town's participation will be voluntary, and that decision will have to be taken once we sort of see what's in the plan. And that's the way it works for this year, and then who knows, maybe next year they'll change the regulation a little bit. But that describes, I think in the briefest possible way, essentially the process related to this panel, which is open to the public and anybody can come. So that's that. All right, did I forget anything, or did we miss anything, or do we have any new business? No? Okay. Go ahead, Dennis.
I have an adjournment.
Okay. We have an adjournment. I did have a request from our Highway Superintendent, Jim Dean, to discuss an executive session with our legal counsel, a potential legal issue with the contractor building the sidewalk on Route 340. And so I'll make a motion for executive session. If I could have a second from over here. So Jerry, all in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. So we're going to do that executive session. But when we come out, I don't anticipate there being any more town business or town discussion, right? So why don't we have, Dennis, if you have an adjournment, speak to that.
Dan Holland of Pearl River passed away. He was a Marine, retired NYPD, went on to several other careers, but he was just a classy individual who I knew through the American Legion and the Hibernians for 35 years. Just a very good man.
Well, thanks for saying that. So in his memory, I'll make a motion that we adjourn this meeting after our executive session. I have a second from over here from Paul Valentine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thanks for coming out tonight.